If you're familiar with RPGs, especially MMOs, then you are definitely familiar with the concept of the Holy Trinity, a tank, DPS, and healer, as far as party compositions go at least. These make up the classic backbone of any party, whether it be a 40-man raid or a simple 4-man party like we get in Dragon's Dogma 2. In this video today, I want to talk about party compositions and how they will affect your playthrough of the game. We'll be talking mainly about things that I've observed from my time playing the first game or from a plethora of the news that has been released. We'll talk about the deep dive stuff when the game comes out and when we have more to show off. So in the pursuit of being transparent, please feel free to shut this video down if the game has been out for a bit. Also, if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos so you can decide if it's the right one for you. With that being said, you can make a party of 4 of any one vocation, like 4 fighters, whatever you want, and still beat the game just fine. You'll struggle at points, sure, but I strongly encourage you to make the party that makes the most sense for you. Don't listen to what the internet tells you, because then you're playing their game and not your own. I'll be talking about mechanics such as what certain vocations will favor and how the AI will be different for said vocations versus you, but this video is mainly about helping break apart some analysis paralysis so that you can enjoy the game at launch, playing the game that you want. And also, if you want to follow the internet, then do it. It's up to you. I'm just telling you that you can get away playing the game however you want and still beat it. So if that's all you wanted to know, though, please feel free to head on out. Before you do, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if this video helped you, as that has a huge impact on my channel. If you've not yet picked up Dragon's Dogma 2 for the PC, you can use the link to my Capcom affiliated Nexus Store in the comment and description. This will get you a key directly from the developer, and I get something like 10 or 15% commission, which goes a long way towards supplying my mini Aussie's vicious treat addiction. Let's get started here on the best party comp on day 1 for Dragon's Dogma 2, which is a title that kind of belies what I said earlier, right? But you know, that's the bullshit of YouTube politics. Either way, we're going to open up with the Trinity, right? The first 3 characters that really are kind of that typical backbone, right? The tank, the DPS, and a healer. And I think the first lot to talk about is the healer, because the mage is our healer in Dragon's Dogma. We do get some access to that with the arcane archer, but what I'm going to talk about right now is the fact that the pawns can only be basic or advanced vocations. They cannot be hybrid vocations, which the arcane archer is. And the arcane archer is good because it can resurrect, right? But when we think of the mage, we get our access to our very first healer in the game. Now, they can specialize and kind of go down a route that does make them a DPS character, but really they can really benefit from going into the healer. If you want to go DPS from the mage, you're better off just kind of going into a sorcerer. With that being said, though, kind of sticking around the mage and kind of hybriding into both DPS and healer is definitely a way to go. But I think this is going to kind of come down to how you want to play the game for yourself. Do you want to be the character that is healing the party and maintaining them, as well as, you know, doing damage here and there? Or do you want the AI to take this over? And I think this is going to kind of help you in breaking down the vocations and which one is a priority for your personal character to take and which ones you're fine offloading to the AI. Because as the pawns work, when it comes to healing you, from my experience in Dragon's Dogma 1, they do it when you're like at oh, you're like 40% health, here's a heal. It's not, oh, we're about to jump into a fight and you're at 85% health, I'll top you off. They definitely kind of use their heals sparingly as it pertains to the character that you're playing. And are you kind of closer to that red line? Or, okay, now I'll give you a heal here and there. In the meantime, they'll focus on doing that damage or trying to do any kind of protection that they can as that mage. So taking a look at that character, you're going to have to decide for yourself, is this the character that you play? But I think that of all the vocations, the mage has to be in your party in one way, shape, or form, yourself or a pawn, because that is going to be such a raw form of healing, especially earlier in the game. And when we talk about the tanking classes, we're going to talk about how a lot of characters have ways to mitigate damage, but very few characters, Magic Archer aside, right, can heal. And that's why the mage should be your number 1 priority in figuring out who or where they get socketed into your group. Now, to evolve the mage, we talk about the sorcerer, right? And what you should think about with the advanced vocations is not necessarily that, hey, okay, the sorcerer is everything that the mage is. That's not true. The sorcerer is a step in a harder direction for DPS for the mage. So you don't sit there and take a look at that, go, okay, I'm just going to become better at being a mage. You're now going to just be an AoE damage king, area of effect, AoE. And that is the big focus, as Sorcerer does the highest amount of area of effect damage of any class in the game. So or vocation in the game. So having this in your party is going to be kind of dependent upon what the other roles are. Are we talking about melee tanking and melee DPS as the other ones with one healer? Well, maybe it makes a lot of sense then to have yourself a sorcerer that can just nuke things with tornado or drop literal meteors onto things that allow them to do a lot of area of effect. Now, while the Magick archer does have access to some area effect, and the archer has a very skinny amount of area effect spells or abilities, it's definitely the king of area effect in the sorcerer. So deciding whether or not that is an integral part of your party is going to be up to you. I think it's probably going to be pretty crucial when it comes to clearing small amounts of things that you don't really want to spend tons of time on. But I think that when it comes to the real big scary monsters, yeah, the sorcerer's still going to do a lot of damage, but you kind of have to weigh for yourself, do I want that dedicated single target damage from, say, one of the archers that can do the weak points in any verticality, or maybe a melee character, whatever it is. So kind of figure that out for yourself too when it comes to setting up your party. But I think the sorcerer is one that you can pass on and be totally fine. Now, next up is the thief. And I also want to lump in with this conversation the Mystic Spearhand. And I think that the Mystic Spearhand and the thief fit very similar roles. Remember, the Mystic Spearhand is a replacement for what the Mystic Knight was. Well, at least it's like the closest thing we get to Mystic Knight here in Dragon's Dogma 2. And what I've noticed with both these classes is that we're looking at a lot of verticality. We're looking at the ability. The Thief is the class that has the highest capability to climb things. All classes can climb and grab on and throw and stuff, but the Thief excels at it. It can climb all the way to the top and do all sorts of cool, fun stuff, as we've seen through all the other art and confirmed through other things. But the Mystic Spearhand also has tons of mobility as well, right? With its ability to kind of blink around, paralyze things, throw stuff, and having all sorts of mobility on the map. So I look at both these classes and I think to myself, they're going to be really fun for your personal character. I think that they're really cool classes to play. I mean, like, I'm really between playing the Mystic Spearhand or a Magick Archer. And I think that they're going to be really cool and fun and enjoyable, but I don't think that, A, obviously a pawn cannot be a Mystic Spearhand, but B, I don't necessarily see the need to have one of my pawns be a thief. Thieves do an incredible amount of single target damage. Right? They can butter their way through smaller creatures. They can steal stuff passively, so they can steal a lot of gold. So there are definite things that I can use, and I'm not saying they're bad in any stretch of the imagination. I'm talking purely about, if I'm thinking about my party comp, what is compulsory? And I don't think the thief is. Not in a bad way. Again, I just think that it's going to come down to the character. Do I want to play the thief? Do I want to focus on having my pawns shore up the strengths of my character or the weaknesses of my character? So what I mean by that is, if I'm a fighter, I want to have a mage, right? Someone to heal me. Then I'm probably going to want to have one or two. Well, I'm going to want to have definitely one or two DPS classes, because that's what we're going to do, right? That's that trinity. And then I have to decide, okay, I definitely think maybe an archer, right? It's going to be really good. And then I'm going to look at, do I want the AoE of a sorcerer or the single target heavier DPS of a thief? And that's what you kind of have to look at, is what character are you playing and how can the thief lean into it when it comes to the pawn? And if you're playing a Mystic Spearhand, is a thief a redundancy? And we're going to find out more of this stuff once the game actually goes live. We can get our hands on it and actually play through a lot of these things. But again, just talking about looking at your party composition and whether a thief makes sense depending on what you're playing, I think is going to come down to what layer of melee damage do you want added into the party? Do you want the heavy hitting, fast approach of a thief, or are you fine with just adding a warrior into the mix? Let's jump into that conversation about fighters and warriors. Fighters and warriors are interesting, right? Because they fill what you would think are similar roles, but not. And this is kind of something to take a look at when it comes to looking at the warrior when it comes to your pawns, right? Your fighter is your best kind of defensive character, your pure defensive character, your shield tank, the guy that can taunt things. They have a lot of abilities that can gear up and help their taunting capabilities and holding aggro, as it were. They can do it passively with just their attacks. This is your tank character. But can't your warrior kind of do that? Not really. Kind of, yeah. The warrior is all about having heavy armor, right? And that heavy armor, their ability to kind of broadside things with their shoulder and buck them over. They can parry things different than they can block things with a warrior, right? A fighter can outright block stuff. A warrior can parry it. So it's a different kind of mitigation. So I think this is kind of depending on what your character is, right? I think that the fighter is not as compulsory. Yeah, sure, it's a tank, but this comes back to my conversation on damage mitigation. You are very nimble and you're very fast and you're very quick as both a thief and an archer. And you have the ability to kind of levitate and float around as a mage and a sorcerer. The magic archer kind of has a lot of that mobility from the archer. So you have built-in ways to escape damage. You're not locked into having to face things head on. And even furthermore, if I'm playing the tank character, I could just simply play an arcane trickster, which is a different style of tanking altogether. And definitely, I'm not saying the fighter is bad. Again, I'm just trying to kind of outline that I think the fighter is going to be interesting because the game is going to recognize aggro based off of the character. If you're the fighter, you're going to hold aggro all day. If the AI is the fighter and you're a DPS class, you're probably not going to hold aggro very well because you're just going to outclass the AI and how they operate. Now, this might be entirely different once we jump into the game. We're like, oh man, the AI has actually kind of got this down pat. They're holding aggro. It's way easier now. But in Dragon's Dogma 1, you could just pull things off so easily. So I think it's kind of one thing to analyze when you're talking about the tank for the group. Does it need to be the fighter? And I don't think it does. You could simply have yourself be the tank. You could be the tank as an arcane trickster. But really, I think it's going to come down to you as the player and trying to learn how to mitigate damage for yourself, how to learn the attack patterns, how to get out of combat, how to try and get your pawns to help you out in dire situations. And I think if I'm kind of looking at the warrior and the fighter side by side and what character would kind of fit my role, I'd probably want a warrior more so than a fighter, because I'd want that character just to do disgusting amounts of damage, right? The warrior can do a high amount of damage, and it can absorb damage through its heavy armor. So I kind of like that role if I'm thinking about the pawn as the tank. If I'm the tank, I think, yeah, for sure, fighter's going to be great because then I can absorb the damage. I can do all that taunting and everything. And it's me. I am the shield. I am the bastion. But I think when it comes to the AI, having just a more stalwart AI that can take the damage, I don't have to worry about them, is going to probably be a little bit better to my personal tastes of playing the game. Now, one of the last ones or combos I want to talk about is both the archer and the magic archer. And I think that the archer is a pretty compulsory DPS, is a pretty needed one. And it's because of the verticality in this game and the Z-axis and being able to target those weak points and being able to really focus down a lot of the creatures that are flying. And there are lots of them. It's a game called Dragon's Dogma. Dragons aren't known for not flying. So having that capability is really strong. Even further, the arcane archer, which you personally can be, not your pawns, yet again to remember, they have the ability to target all sorts of weak points in a huge flurry of ways with different elements and enchanting those elements and also resurrecting the party. So you have a lot of cool support characteristics as the magic archer that I think if I'm the main character, it makes just so much sense, right? It's such a fun way to play the main character to really kind of support your pawns. And that's why I'm kind of between that and the Mystic Spearhand, because it just seems like it's such a cool backline type of character where I really get to take in the breadth of the action going on while also supplementing and helping out the team. But I think the archer, though, like again, is just such a good one to have because it allows me to constantly pour DPS onto a target. For those that are coming from Total War Warhammer, and that's used to be a big fixture of my channel, there used to be two ways to deal damage to large creatures. Lots of damage to large creatures. Anything with bonus versus large and archers. Bonus versus large, you were limited to the fact that you had to be up against the thing to do the damage. Archers, you can be wherever you want as long as you can see and attack the target and aim. And that's what I mean here when it comes to Dragon's Dogma 2. Sure, yeah, a warrior can just smash fuck something, right? A fighter's going to get up there in that cookie jar. The thief's just going to like spin, annihilate something. But I like the fact that an archer can just really keep consistent, persistent damage by just simply shooting nonstop. And I think that if I'm looking at those really important roles, Mage is right there. And I think that archer sits alongside it as just a really strong DPS option for your party. So with all that being said, what's the most ideal party to walk into the game with? I personally am between the Mystic Spearhand or the Arcane Archer. And I think no matter what, between those two, however I take it, the pawns are going to be a warrior, a mage, and then I'm going to go with a thief. That gives me a pretty wide range of capabilities. I'm going to have 2 melee characters or 3 melee characters, and I'm going to have all the support from a mage. And I think that that's a lot of fun. Even if I go with the Mystic Spearhand, I could swap the thief out with an archer if I so wish. But all this is really going to come down to is how you want to play the game with your main character. Because regardless of what you choose pawn-wise, you are going to have to passively or actively tank, either as a fighter, right? Or dodging attacks and trying to learn the attack patterns and everything so that you are passively dodging out of the way because you've drawn so much aggro from your heavy damage dealing capabilities. So I think having those things in mind are pretty good to know. And I think that it really boils down to having a mage, having an archer, and then a secondary DPS that supports the main character you've chosen. Are you going to go with a sorcerer? Well, that mage can go over there and help you cast spells. At least I think they can. I know sorcerers can, 2 sorcerers can help each other cast. But are you going to go with the sorcerer and then have another warrior up there so that you've got some actual frontline meat? Cool, then do that. Are you going to go with the Mystic Spearhand and now you've got all your range taken care of? Maybe throw a thief or a fighter into the mix like I'm going to go with. Or maybe you're going to go with the Arcane Trickster, which we haven't talked a lot about because I think a lot of the mechanics, we just don't really know enough of how they're going to play into the game and how viable they're going to be to really make a hard stance on them, right? So are you going to be the trickster and then just have all these melee characters going ass wild, a thief, a fighter, and a warrior, whatever it is, right? But I think it's kind of knowing for yourself that having some sort of DPS that is going to be able to hit weak points very well, easily, or at least reliably, like a thief or an archer, having someone that's going to heal you and protect you like a mage, then having another DPS character that complements you is really the formula to approaching your party in Dragon's Dogma 2. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, what have you decided for your character in the character creator? What have you decided for your first pawn? I have a archer for my character, and then my pawn is a mage. So we're already covering 2 of the big bases I talked about. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see how that works. Remember, you can swap out your pawns at any point. Your pawns don't level up with you immediately. You have to go back to an inn to rest, and they'll catch up level-wise. But you can swap them out. Go to the Nexus and can swap those bad boys out for whatever you want, or the Void. And just swap them out. And your character too, swap out your vocations. Your character's stats don't scale with your vocation like they did in Dragon's Dogma 1. You could mess up your character by going too many levels into one vocation, and it's not like that anymore. So just have fun, experiment with whatever you want. Don't feel like you're pressured to play any one simple min-maxy way. Play the way that you want because you spent your money and it's your game. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.